When Sheikh Hasina fled Bangladesh in August 2024,
Both Sheikh Hasina and her sister have left her official residence for a quote, safer place.
very few imagined that just 1 year later, she would be facing the harshest verdict possible under Bangladeshi law, a death sentence.
We have decided to inflict her with only one sentence, that is sentence of death.
But this story did not begin in a courtroom. It began on the streets, with students, with anger, and with a country caught between its past and its future. Today, we trace the dramatic fall of South Asia's longest-serving leaders, the uprising that reshaped Bangladesh, the verdict that shook the region, and the difficult question India now faces: that will it hand over Sheikh Hasina?
Dhaka has sent the third official extradition request to New Delhi.
And Dhaka wants her back.
Any chance India will send her back to Bangladesh?
For more than a decade, Sheikh Hasina presided over Bangladesh with the confidence of someone who believed she was building a modern state. Under her leadership, the country saw economic growth, infrastructure expansion, and rising global visibility. But behind these achievements, critics from international rights groups to political opponents painted a very different picture. Reports describe allegations of suppressed dissent, a tightly controlled judiciary, and the systematic weakening of opposition parties, making young Bangladeshis saw shrinking freedoms and growing inequalities. This simmering discontent eventually exploded, not from politicians, but from students. In July 2024, the spark came when a court reinstated a controversial quota that 30% of civil service jobs would be reserved for descendants of 1971 war. To many students, it wasn't just a policy. It felt like entrenched privilege, a system stacked against merit. So what was the result after this quota was announced? Universities erupted. Suddenly, young people who had grown up under Hasina's leadership believed that their future was being stolen by a political elite. As protests grew, the state responded forcefully, deploying security forces, enforcing blackouts. The crackdown was brutal.
So the situation was going out of control when she deployed paramilitary forces and also finally the army.
Estimates, including by the UN and the human rights organizations, suggest that up to 1,400 people may have died in the violence. What began as a student movement became a national crisis, and the government lost control not just of the protests but of public sentiment. Prosecutors later laid out a chilling case. They claimed that Hasina did not merely respond to the protests, but she gave the orders. Leaked audio recordings presented during the trial allegedly captured her instructing security forces to neutralize demonstrators. Victims and survivors testified that the violence was not spontaneous. It was planned, coordinated, and executed with precision. The judges described her as a superior commander behind the operations. In the heat of this political and moral storm, Hasina made a choice that stunned many. She fled Bangladesh and sought refuge in India. With Hasina out of the country, the Bangladeshi interim government moved swiftly. It set up a special international crimes tribunal to investigate the 2024 protests. Hasina was charged alongside her former Home Minister Azaduzzaman Khan and the police chief Abdullah Al-Mamun. Over weeks of proceedings, the tribunal heard testimony from medical experts, protest survivors, and officials. But Hasina was never present. Tried in absentia, she watched her fate unfold from exile in India. On 17th November 2025, the tribunal delivered its verdict. Hasina was found guilty of crimes against humanity. On other charges, she was given imprisonment until natural death. Former Home Minister Khan received a death sentence too, while the ex-police chief Al-Mamun, who cooperated with the prosecution, was sentenced to 5 years. Outside, many saw it as a justice, others called it politically motivated. Sheikh Hasina, in a public statement, condemned the tribunal as rigged and argued she was denied a fair defense. Hasina has been living in India since fleeing Bangladesh, and Dhaka immediately invoked their bilateral extradition treaty after the verdict. demanding her return. But India's response was neutral. The Ministry of External Affairs noted the verdict but stopped short of committing to extradition.
We have received the request, and this request is being examined as part of ongoing judicial and internal legal processes. We remain committed to the best interests of the people of Bangladesh, including peace, democracy, inclusion, and stability in that country.
Legal
And we
analysts point to a critical complication. The India-Bangladesh extradition treaty includes an exception for political offences, and many believe Hasina's charges could fall under the exemption. That leaves New Delhi in a delicate position, balancing justice, regional diplomacy, and the risk of being drawn into a highly polarized political conflict. And the question may rise that what if India refuses? So if the India refuses to extradite Hasina, Bangladesh's options get narrow. Dhaka can increase diplomatic pressure, but forcing her return without Indian cooperation is unlikely. In this standoff, Hasina's fate may remain suspended, caught between two nations, two legal systems, and competing narratives of justice. So what lies ahead for her? What options does Hasina have now? Firstly, she could remain in India indefinitely under de facto protection. Secondly, she might challenge the verdict through international legal forums, arguing that the trial was politically motivated. And thirdly, even in exile, she could leverage her political influence. Though with the death sentence hanging over her, her options are risky and limited. So to wrap up, Sheikh Hasina's fall from power is more than the downfall of a leader. It's a story of a nation forced to confront its past, of a young people who dared to rise, of government that responded with force, and of a neighboring rising country navigating a moral and political tightrope. As Bangladesh stands at this critical junction, one question remains. Is this the end of Hasina's political journey or the start of an even more complicated chapter?